special week calls for special episodes and special guests on the Orange and Black Insider Bengals podcast. I'm Anthony Cosenza, joined as always, long time no talk, John. John Sheeran, happy to be seeing your lovely face again, my friend. We've got a special show lined up here with a special guest, but how you been doing since 24 hours ago, basically, when we recorded?
Just another day, man. The week just keeps dragging, just one day closer. That's all that matters.
That's right. And we have a very special guest here. Joe Valerio, former offensive lineman with the Kansas City Chiefs and in the NFL, an Ivy Leaguer, great guy, and current host of the BLEAV in Chiefs podcast. We're happy to be joined by him to get some information on the opponent in the AFC Championship game. And there's really no one better I can think of to get a peek behind the curtain here. And we are joined by Joe Valerio of the BLEAV Podcast Network. Joe, welcome to the program. How you doing, sir?
Oh my gosh, Anthony, John, great to be with you. Like I'm watching that intro. Can I be on the next time Anthony Munoz is on, please?
Yeah, yes, you got it.
Because one of my all-time heroes. You know, we share the NFL record for the most touchdowns by a lineman. We're actually co-owners of that. So I've got to talk to Anthony the next time he's on. Literally one of the guys I felt like I tried to model my play after watching him play all those years. So I saw his picture come up and I was like, oh, Anthony, I got to be on with him next time.
We got him startled now. We got him rattled a little bit, you know.
I know. I'm rattled. Just I'll give you all the insights I can, as long as the Bengals coaches aren't listening. You know, coming up with some of my ideas here about how to stop Patrick and, you know, what the offensive line can do to shore some things up and things like that. But it's going to be a great game, and this Bengals team so exciting, and I'm so happy for the city of Cincinnati to have, you know, this excitement coming back after, you know, a little bit of a drought. So
yeah, just a small one. Look, we've got a lot to talk about. We want to talk about this matchup, the Kansas City Chiefs, your thoughts on the Bengals, obviously some things in your playing career. Really cool story. I actually didn't know. I feel like I know a lot of tidbits of information and trivia about football. I did not know that stat about the touchdowns that by offensive linemen shared with Anthony. I had no idea. And it's really cool. You had a great career yourself, and we also had Richmond Webb on the program a while ago. And anytime Anthony Munoz comes into the discussion, it seems like every former or current offensive lineman says that's the dude who's the standard, you know. So
no, he was the standard bearer for, you know, how you play, how you conduct yourself as a player, as a human being. Just a fantastic person, you know. More importantly, you know, besides the Hall of Fame career, he's just a fantastic dude. So, you know, really, really cool stuff on number 78. So that's the number I wore in high school. So I still, you know, think about that. So
that's awesome. Well, let's kind of start with the Chiefs. I mean, that's why you're here, right? I mean, look, this has kind of been a tale of two seasons a little bit for the Kansas City Chiefs, and they started off slow for them. They started off slow. There were some turnover issues, some defensive issues. They really turned the corner, had that 8-0 run towards the middle and end of the season, and then here they are now in the AFC Championship. What, in your opinion, were some of the major issues early in the season, and what was the couple of key things or one key thing that really had them turn that corner right around the middle of the season and got them to where they are right now?
Yeah, so it's a great place to start because it was, you know, it was pretty unexpected, right, for the Chiefs to have that air quote slow start, right? I mean, everybody expected them after last season kind of getting thumped in the Super Bowl. They made all the improvements on the offensive line, right? We could talk a lot about what the Chiefs did on the offensive line. That was Brett Veach's, you know, this is his dream right here coming true on how they were able to shore that up going into this final part of the offseason or the postseason push. But, you know, I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that it took a little while for Coach Steve Spagnuolo to get the defensive positioning and get the right people of the, you know, if you think of it as a puzzle, it was tough to get all those pieces together, and it just took them a little while. And the Chiefs defense has historically over the last 4 years that's been their MO, right? Was to kind of like feel their way through and then figure it out. Like, gotta remember, guys, like I call September the new preseason in the NFL because you don't have the luxury anymore of, playing 4 tough preseason games where starters might get a quarter, a half, 3/4 of a game. I mean, camp is, and I'm not taking anything away from these awesome athletes that are playing today, but it's like a country club compared to when we were playing back in the 90s and, in the 80s. It was like, we used to say around Kansas City, like, Marty time was Lombardi time. Like, our training camps were 13 days in a row, full pad 2-a-days, 1 day off, and then 13 more 2-pad, 2-a-days or full pad 2-a-days in a row. So we were ready by the time we got to September. I think teams today, September is a little bit of a feel around, like, all right, who can really tackle, who are the guys that can really cover in a game situation when receivers are going all out. So I know that was a long answer to a short question, but I think that was part of the Chiefs. I think that was part of the Chiefs' problem on defense, is getting the right pieces in place. I mean, moving Chris Jones inside was new. They were still the defensive backfield was still relatively kind of young, and with Charvarius and L'Jarius Sneed and Charvarius were trying to figure out how they're going to play and how they're going to play together. And Tyrann just brought them all together, right? Like he's the key to all that and getting teams ready to play. And I think they found their groove. Picking up Melvin Ingram was a fantastic pickup to shore up the outside rush and to allow Chris Jones to really do his thing and to work some stunts inside with Jaron Reed. So I think it just took him that. Now, you flip to the other side of the ball, and I think Patrick Mahomes, when the defense wasn't playing well, it's not that, look, Patrick Mahomes has confidence in all of his teammates, but there was something going on in his mind that he was basically carrying the entire Midwest on his shoulders in those first several games, because he's like, oh my God, I got to stay out on the field. Like it's not that he would ever say that. He would never overtly come out and say, oh, well, my defense isn't playing well, so I got to pick it up. He's just not that kind of teammate. But come on, you could see in his play that's what was happening. He was pushing the ball down into the ground. He was trying to force throws. He's trying to stay out on the field, keep the defense over there, let me win this game myself. And that's not the way that offense is set up. That offense is footloose, fancy free, let it go. Okay, got a 3 and out, big deal. Bieniemy and Reed go back to the lab and they think of something else. Oh, 3 and out. All right, and the next thing you know, they hit the second and third quarter and it's like, and they pedal to the metal. So missing that piece of being able to play that way is, I think, what really put that team in a tailspin. And then once Coach Baggs got things together on defense and they could stop the run, the schedule eased up a little bit. Let's be honest. Let's call it what it is. The Chiefs have had some lulls in their schedule. And Jeff Fadoten, my BLEAV podcast partner, and I, we said this really early on when we knew the Chiefs were starting to like pick it back up. We were like, that Bengals game is, let's think about this. That's going to be the toughest game they play in that stretch. If you just, all you have to do is look at the Chiefs their schedule on, ESPN.com or wherever you look and go, oh yeah, Joe's right. Like they had a lull there. And I think what the Bills or what the Bengals did was help them beat the Bills. Like, because the way that the one thing about the Chiefs coaching staff and the players too, they learn from not only every loss, but they learn from wins. And I think they took that Bengals game to heart and they said, all right, we had that lull. We had a couple of, like, air quote again, bye weeks, because they did. They had a pretty easy stretch there in the middle of the season, and they hit the buzzsaw at Arrowhead, and the Bengals, turnovers got them, right? Patrick wasn't as effective because they were getting to him a little bit, and the rest was history, right? And the Bengals win that game, even though the Chiefs, it didn't look like the Bengals were going to win that game at the beginning, right? It looked like, all right, the Chiefs are the Chiefs, and then they hit that buzzsaw, and Joe Burrow made it happen. So I think the Bengals loss was the best thing that could have happened for them. That's not what a Bengals fan wants to hear, because now they've got to go into Arrowhead, right? As opposed to maybe even somebody coming to Cincinnati if things would have turned out for, where the Bengals could have picked up the home field, advantage if one of the lower seeds could have won. But I just think it was a down hit for the Chiefs. They figured it out on defense. Patrick started playing. They went, Oh, and one other thing. I'm sorry, I'm bad. I'm on a soapbox here, but
no, it's good.
But like one of the things that that Bengals fans, if you don't watch the Chiefs all the time, I wouldn't expect you to if you're a Bengals fan, but like their offense is so complicated and so complex, and there's so many variations to what they do. Those first few games this year, it's not like there's 31 other defensive coordinators just sitting around going, "Oh, woe is me. We have the Chiefs on the schedule." Like they go to work and they try to figure out, all right, how do you bracket Kelsey? How do you keep Hill from just running across, stretching horizontally, vertically? Like he's willfully going wherever he wants, right? They make you cover every single blade of grass on offense when the Chiefs are on offense. And so defensive coordinators, they're sitting there trying to dream up schemes to stop it. And I think they were effective the first couple of weeks, and then all of a sudden the thing that's really good about that staff, and my fear when Eric Bieniemy hits the road and becomes the head coach, is are they going to have that same ability to react and get better as other people are getting better? Because that's what they do. That's what that staff has done better than any staff I've watched or spent a lot of time studying, is that they know how to react to the game plan that other teams give them. And year after year, they've just keep coming up with more and more creative ways to outsmart the defense while the defense is trying to outsmart them. And I think that's been their big bonus. So really, again, long story to a really short question. They hit that bottom. The defense put it together. The offense really, kind of got back into their footloose and fancy free, open up the playbook. The running game started to work for them a little bit. And, they went on that 8-game run. But, Bengals fans I think they should take heart in the fact that, they beat them at Arrowhead, and who's to say it can't happen again, right?
Talking with Joe Valerio, former Chiefs offensive lineman, current host of the BLEAV in Chiefs podcast. I said at the beginning of the show that we got Joe rattled, but clearly that wasn't the case because he just gave us an encyclopedia off of one answer. So, it may be something about the name Joe. Joes don't really get rattled. They don't really fold under pressure, just like the Bengals quarterback. But going back to the Chiefs defense and like that turnaround from the middle of the season, it was incredibly evident. They were like top 10 in EPA after being like 30th in the first 8 weeks. How would you describe Steve Spagnuolo's willingness to adapt his defense to expose offense's weaknesses? Because the question right now is how much will they try to emulate what Tennessee did with their defensive line, stunting and twisting the hell out of the rushers to get pressure up the middle?
Yeah, no, John, that's a great, very astute, observation in Coach Spags. And what Coach Spagnuolo does, and I can just substitute in Bieniemy for Spagnuolo, is and we'll focus on Coach Spags. What he does and all the staff there does is they mold the players. They don't mold the players to the playbook. They mold the playbook to the players. All right. So they don't try to just jam square pegs into round holes. They create a playbook that works best for the talent that they have. That's a special characteristic that comes with veteran coaching. Guys like Andy Reid, who's mentored and brought Eric Bieniemy, around on this whole offense thing. Coach Spagnuolo, who's been around the block. It's not his first rodeo. Those coaches, yeah, they have a philosophy, but let me tell you what they also do well is they take the talent they have and they say, ooh, I'm going to make this playbook work for Tyrann Mathieu. I'm going to make this playbook work for Chris Jones and Frank Clark and the young linebacking core and some of the younger cornerbacks that they have. And they don't just try to say, nope, this is my defensive philosophy. We're going to be this and we're going to run this. And I don't care what down it is. And I don't care, what your talent level is. You're going to fit my playbook. And that is not what Coach Spags does. And he's historically done that with all the teams he's coached, if you go back and look. And I think that's what separates him and why they were able to pivot mid-season and really get it together, because he never just kept forcing his playbook on the players. And that takes a special kind of coach, because, there's a lot of egos flying around the NFL. And, when coaches get a certain kind of a philosophy, they want to just log jam players into it rather than saying, all right, you know what, maybe I'm not the smartest guy in the room. Maybe I need to, figure out a different way to get, Chris Jones out there and wait, get this young linebacking core. Because to me, that was on defense. The linebacking core is if I'm a Bengals fan in this game, of course you're going to want to watch these two quarterbacks go at it, right? But I think I would watch the linebacking core of the Chiefs, because that's really truly where I think the weakness has been. Now, if they don't have Turan back for this, and he, coming out of the protocol and everything, that's going to be a whole nother ball of wax, and for the Chiefs that they're going to have to overcome, because that really, as you saw in the Bills, that really exposed the middle of the field, and the communication errors that were happening it was bad. It was bad. Like that game, Josh Allen, as good as he is, and as good as the receiving core they have, those plays should not have happened. But I think if I were a Bengals fan, when the Bengals are on offense, yeah, there's going to be some stuff going on, like you said, in the middle of the line with Jaron Reed and Chris Jones trying to get pressure up the middle to get in Joe Burrow's face. Then of course you got Frank Clark and Melvin Ingram coming off the edge. Like, who wants to be in that mix, right? But right. I think Joe Burrow's got the wherewithal to beat that. Watch the linebacking core, because how they play, I think, is how the game's going to go. Yeah, we can all say the games are won up front. I think defensively for the Chiefs and offensively for the Bengals, the game's going to be won from 5 yards to 15 yards out, behind the offense, behind the defense. And I think that's where the Chiefs are going to have to really shore things up, because the linebacking core can be a little bit inconsistent.
So I'm going to, Joe, your former offensive lineman with the Kansas City Chiefs, I'm going to flip kind of that question on you a little bit and talk about the Chiefs offensive line. Major overhaul this last offseason because of what happened in the Super Bowl last year, all of the pressure and the sacks, of course, injuries there at that time. The Cincinnati Bengals have had a pretty good year on the defensive line, and from a pressure standpoint, not necessarily world beaters, but you have a Pro Bowl edge defender in Trey Hendrickson. Sam Hubbard's had a nice year. Larry Ogunjobi did until he was lost for the year. You still got BJ Hill, a number of cast of characters there that can get to the quarterback. What are you seeing as strengths and possible weaknesses to exploit for the Cincinnati Bengals along that Chiefs offensive line that has some good young players they've added, and Joe Thuney, et cetera?
Yeah, I mean, that was Brett Veach's whole goal in the offseason was like, we can't let that happen again. Like, we can't. It's because offensive line play is so full of chemistry, right? And you miss one little piece in there, and lack of talent that comes in and fills in, it can be, as everybody saw in that game, against the Bucs, it was devastating, right? I mean, Patrick was running for his life, and Patrick, he moves around the pocket. Like, you give him 3 or 4 seconds, he's going to find the pocket within the pocket, and he's going to, that's what gives Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill and some of these other speedy receivers the opportunity to get open and break some zones, and also beat some guys man to man, as that speed is either stretching the field horizontally or vertically, right? That's what the Chiefs do. They stretch you across the field, right, with speed, and then they also try to beat you vertically and stretch you vertically as well, and get you, out of your comfort zone, either zone or man. But Patrick in the Buccaneers, in the Super Bowl game, I mean, it was like instant pressure. Like, there wasn't even a chance for him to even escape. And that's what they said, well, that's not ever happening again. So they went out. I mean, the Kansas City Chiefs pretty much have, and at one point had 10 offensive line starters. When you go up and down the roster and you look at the players that they have starting and also backing up. Now, granted, you can say that Trey Smith and Creed Humphrey were both rookies, but they were deemed the starters. So let's consider them, the two starters, and what season they've had, especially Creed Humphrey getting a lot of accolades, at the rookie center spot. You go out and get Thuney, Wiley vet, all-pro player, Orlando Brown, super free agent signing, right? And then when you look at who they had backing up and was going to be going in as a starter, right? Lucas Niang starts the season. Well, that doesn't work out. We go to Mike Remmers, full-time starter for much of his career. Austin Blythe, center, backup, full-time starter, bring him on. Nick Allegretti started an entire season last year. He's backup guard. And then they trade away, Duvernay-Tardif, right? Laurent Duvernay-Tardif to the Jets. He was a full-time starter 2-3 years on the Super Bowl teams. And so Kyle Long, right? They bring Kyle Long, big, huge, free agent signing. Now he's had struggled with some injuries, but again, full-time starter. Like there are no schlubs, sitting in that offensive line room. And that's a tough balance. That's a tough thing to do is to get, a group of starters like that to just like put their egos aside and say, look, we want to win a Super Bowl regardless of whether or not we could be playing somewhere else. Who knows what happens in the offseason, when Nick Allegretti's a free agent and he's played enough to get some looks, and Austin Blythe says, well, I came here I thought I was going to be the starting center. I'm not, even though I was a starter for much of my career. So, that to me was really the sign of a great thing. And Andy Hecht, offensive line coach, former, Bears All-Pro, he just said, I'm going to coach these guys to the point where, we're going to get so good at zone blocking, we're going to block linebackers with the defensive lineman's butt. Like that's what he's been teaching his guys to do. And when you watch their offensive line come together, the chemistry that this group has, they just like they just own the line of scrimmage. And look, they're not like the old hogs of the Washington football team, of the 80s, where he's just rolling over teams, or the Bears offensive line, back in the 80s. But they really zone block well. They give their running backs enough time, and they're all fantastic pass blockers. So they're really well balanced. And that's what Andy Reid needs in this offense. He needs well-balanced offensive linemen who can run block and can pass block and get out in space and do the extended run game stuff that they do with the screens to Travis and the screens to Hardman and the screens to Tyreek. I mean, and then obviously Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he's a great scat back. So it's just the offensive line, I think, to me, has been the key. Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, of course, Tyreek Hill, but I think I'm a homer when it comes to offensive line play because that's what I did. But I really do objectively think that was the key critical point of this offense's success this year.
You being a homer for offensive line play is exactly why you're qualified to answer this next question. I've had this take for a couple of years now, ever since really Joe Burrow finished his career with LSU. And just let me ask the whole question because it might sound blasphemous in the beginning, but I always saw Burrow similar to Mahomes in the fact that they can create and extend plays out of structure and they can keep plays alive. And as an offensive lineman, as a former offensive lineman, what is that like, knowing that every single play could be like 8-9 seconds long and you have to just have your head on a swivel to just keep blocking those plays? How is it different compared to like having to block for a true pocket passer?
Man, John, that's fantastic question and really good, just a fantastic way of looking at the game. What you can't do as an offensive lineman is you can't change what you're doing. You have to be able to react. So the Chiefs have athletic offensive linemen who can react because you don't ever want to coach somebody differently than if they were just a drop back passer. Because that's really what Patrick is. If you watch him, he's not Lamar Jackson, right? He's not a running quarterback. I don't even think he's in the class, in that same bucket as even like a Josh Allen, where Josh is, there's prescriptive runs for Josh Allen. He's either going to pass or he's going to run. Patrick, like you said, and Joe Burrow, I think is in that, they're more in the same bucket where they're extending plays. And if they run, they run. Because you watch Patrick run, he looks like, what did somebody say? He looks like he's wearing shoes that are 2 sizes too small and he's running on hot coals, right? He's not Lamar Jackson. He's not Michael Vick, right? He's not that kind of running back in a quarterback's body, right? He's a quarterback. He's a drop back quarterback. And I think the same thing is for Burrow. And I think as a lineman, what you have to coach your lineman to do is just block as if he's going to be back there at 6 yards, right, in the pocket, and do your thing and let him react. Because if you start trying to do the reverse engineer it, we're all right, we're going to come up with some interesting blocking scheme to sort of take advantage of Patrick's mobility, that's when you get into trouble. So line coach is all right, you have to assume Patrick is going to be 5 or 6 yards behind the center every play. And if he's not, let him react. And then once you see him moving around, go get on a body and just, and protect Patrick as long as you possibly can. That's the way you do it. Because if you try to get an offensive lineman out of their game and you start coming up with different kind of pass blocking schemes and techniques, you're going to get into a world of trouble when you're trying to block a guy who's 325 pounds, who runs a 4.6, who's coming at you while you're going backwards to tear off your quarterback's head. Like you can't, you have to be so zeroed in on that guy's body movements and where he's going. And that's why Patrick, that's why he doesn't, like, there's not a whole lot of plays. If you watch, there's not a whole lot of plays where Patrick Mahomes just like goes. It's always a reaction to the pocket collapsing. Yep. And what Patrick does, as good as any I've ever seen. Joe Montana was a lot like this. And not that Joe was, and Joe's listening. I'm sorry, Joe. Like, I would never say you weren't a great athlete, because he was a fantastic basketball player. But like, Joe's not.
Oh, he's listening for sure. 100%. He's listening.
So like, but Joe was just as good as Patrick at finding what I call the pocket in the pocket, right? So when you watch the pocket start to, like, I don't want to use the word break down, because it's not breaking down. It's just evolving, because that's what pockets do. They evolve. Like, and when it does, he just finds that he just has like these eyes on the side of his head and the back of his head, and he just finds that pocket within the pocket. And he, like you said, John, he extends the play. And to me, that's more dangerous than having like a mobile quarterback where you're like, all right, let's boot him out. Let's waggle him out. Let's do this, and let's come up with some funky play action. And like, no, the Chiefs are a drop back passing team, and they let Patrick react to what happens. Now, what can happen in that situation, and I think what has been happening to Joe, unfortunately, is it's collapsing too fast. Like, you can't just get beat on a swim move right off the ball, because then the quarterback he can't even react to the pocket. And that's what happened in the Super Bowl. If you go back and watch that film of the Buccaneers in the Super Bowl, like, Patrick didn't even have time to find the pocket in the pocket. He was getting just like rushed immediately because the guys were getting beat right off the ball. And I think that's like the big thing. And I mean, I know what Chiefs fans are waiting for. They're waiting for Joe Burrow's luck to run out, if you can call it that. And then I think, guys, he's been sacked 20 times without fumbling. And I went back and somebody was sharing some statistics with me, and like, the average is like 5. The average for quarterbacks is like 5 sacks per fumble. And like, Joe's going on like 20. And I think that's what, like, Chiefs fans are like drooling now, going, all right, well, it's time up. Like, cause nothing, guys, like, pick sixes are great. Like pick sixes are fantastic, right? Because it changes the game, right? Like, you're driving down the field and bam, a guy picks one and goes. You're like, but there's that momentum changes so quickly. There's nothing more demoralizing for an offense, and this comes from experience, than a sack and a fumble. Like, it's just because the crowd just gets so into that, because it's like they're at the Roman Coliseum, right? And they're watching the lions devour the gladiators. Like, when they see that, because like pick six is like, it's a momentum changer, but it's not like a quarterback getting devoured by the line and the ball comes out and it's like, oh yeah, and the fans are going crazy and the offensive line's demoralized. And pick sixes, you see quarterbacks recover from those pretty quickly. Fumbles on sacks and those kind of, like, that kind of pressure, especially at Arrowhead. I mean, look, I feel for all linemen. I don't care if I cover the Chiefs and I'm a Chiefs homer. Like, I feel for the Bengals offensive line going into Arrowhead, wondering, coming out of a 9-sack game, like, how loud is it really going to be there? Like, how much are we going to be distracted from our game that it's going to affect us to the point where, we can't get our jobs done because it is so loud. I used to watch Derek Thomas. Like, thank God our fans know how to cheer at Arrowhead, because like, they were pins. You can hear pins drop when we were out on the field. They just knew, because when we're on offense, you don't cheer, because so the quarterback can make it do his thing. But I would watch Derek Thomas. Like, I used to feel so bad. Like seriously, for like tackles, like I'd be watching them like, oh God, like because you can't hear. And then Derek gets that, he would get that one extra little step on you because of the noise, especially as a tackle, because you're looking out and he would line up out there wide. So you got to take your eye off the ball a little bit to keep your eyes on him. And then all of a sudden now you're moving on his reaction. And so, for my brethren up front for the Bengals, I'm just like, guys, like just hang in there, man. Like, don't, it's going to be loud. Just, put a spaghetti pot on your head and bang it with a metal spoon for a couple days. And that'll help you get used to how loud it is and distracting, because it's more than just a loud. It's distractingly loud. And I don't know if it's the engineering of the stadium, because it's an open-ended stadium. It's not a dome. It's not like the King Dome, which was a tiny little 50,000 seat, cement roof dome. Like, it's an open air stadium. I don't know what the heck is going on in the engineering of that place, or if the fans could care less about their vocal cords. It's just so loud, and
I think I know where you're going here. I think you're trying to say the Chiefs are pumping noise into the stadium illegally. I think that's what you're alluding to.
If somebody wants to go do an audit, I'm sure there are NFL officials wandering around there, wondering, and listening for it. But I know some teams have been it's been some conspiracy theories that it happens in some stadiums, but it's just so loud. And I never encountered it, anything as loud. Seriously, I'm not just being a Chiefs homer. Like, I didn't play in every stadium in my career, played in probably of the 32 current, or at least current cities, because some of the stadiums were built new, like in Tampa and stuff. But like, I played in almost every city, most of the domes. I literally can't remember any place that was that loud, except for Denver used to get close in Old Mile High. Used to kind of get close to that kind of noise level, where you couldn't hear yourself think.
Talking with Joe Valerio at Joe Valerio 73 on Twitter. Hopefully he's got a few more minutes to chat with us about this game.
Keep going. We're rolling. We're rolling. Now it's a 2-minute offense. Let's just go.
That's right. Well, you mentioned you were talking about Joe Burrow. The Bengals have been, they've been trying to create an artificial environment at practice this week in terms of noise and all that kind of stuff. Burrow has been improving from his rookie year, most definitely in terms of securing the football when getting hit, sacked, etc. But you played with the GOAT or then GOAT for a couple of years in Kansas City, Joe Montana. You saw and heard a lot of things in playing with him, and I don't know if you've heard, there have been some actual comparisons, I believe it was Phil Simms and whatnot, that Joe Burrow could be very much like Joe Montana. I don't know. I would love to hear from someone who played with Joe Montana like yourself as to the validity of that. Do you see similarities? What do you see when you hear a statement like that?
I mean, well, he's young, so we don't know. I mean, he's athletic. He's got that cool as the other side of the pillow type mentality, which you need in the NFL, right? I mean, you need that, and I see that. I see that in Joe Burrow. What I see that's a little bit different than Joe Montana versus a Joe Burrow. Joe wasn't as much, I guess, of like a risk taker, so to speak. I think Joe Burrow has a little bit more of a and when I say this with all positivity. I think he has a positive, I don't know what word I'm looking for. Like it's not, he's not reckless, but he's got this like positive overconfidence or something that you need, that as an offensive lineman, I would want my quarterback to have. I don't want my quarterback to be too careful, because I'm a big believer, like in life, like perfection gets in the way of great, and he doesn't try. That's what I'm trying to say. He's not a perfectionist. And I like that about him. I like that about Joe Burrow, that he's not somebody who's afraid to fail and take that shot and go for it, right? I mean, who doesn't want to play with somebody like that, who has a high level of humility but also a very high level of confidence, which is good, because confidence comes through preparedness, right? I mean, true humility isn't thinking less of yourself, it's thinking of yourself less, right? Little C.S. Lewis quote in there. Like,
yeah, I like that.
And that's what that's where I see, that's what Joe Montana was. Like, Joe Montana was the quarterback who, he never thought less of himself. He wasn't an aw shucks, push my foot around in the dirt kind of aw shucks kind of guy. Tremendous amount of confidence. Never bordered on arrogance ever. Tremendous amount of confidence, and it never bordered on arrogance because he was always thinking of his teammates first. His confidence came through his ability to be prepared and to have a tremendous amount of confidence in his teammates and in himself. So I see that. And why not, right? Why not? Why can't Joe Burrow be the next Joe Montana, right? Who's to say? Because it's not going to be a Patrick Mahomes. They're two different styles, right? Josh Allen's not going to be the next Joe Montana. He may win as many Super Bowls, and Patrick may as well. Tom Brady is so different than Joe Montana. They're just different kind of players. But I think Joe Burrow has more of the physical attributes, more of the arm, the smarts, the ability to not be rattled, as Joe Montana does. So yeah, why not, right? Why not make that comparison? And we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident. I think I can speak for Anthony here when I say that Patrick Mahomes is the first Patrick Mahomes. There's never been a guy like him before. There may never be a guy like him again. Joe Burrow, he's got compared to Brady and Montana, but he's also kind of just like, one of one, basically. There's not a lot that you can compare him to. But just going back to this game, and obviously these teams played 3 weeks ago, and it took a near perfect game for the Bengals to beat the Chiefs at home. If you ask Bengals fans how the Bengals can lose in any game, the answer is just obviously pressure the quarterback. And then obviously, if you have a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes that you're going up against, that quarterback will take advantage of those stalled drives and whatnot. But as a guy who follows the Chiefs, who knows this franchise very well, and has seen the Chiefs struggle from time to time this year, what is the best way to beat the Chiefs? Is it just to wait till Mahomes makes a mistake, or is there some hidden secret there that the Bengals should know?
I don't know if there's a secret sauce to it, but if I'm putting a game plan together, let's just talk about, look, I'm not an offensive or defensive coordinator in the NFL, but just from my opinion, right? If I'm putting a game plan together and just observing where I've seen the struggles, where I've seen the successes, if you can learn to rush Patrick Mahomes in a more disciplined manner, where you don't want to spy him, because then you lose a little something, right? Because that's what the Bills did on that last play, which was absolutely ridiculous. I couldn't believe that I can't believe they rushed 4, number one, and didn't drop 8 in coverage there at the end. They rushed 4, and then the fourth guy spied Patrick at the line of scrimmage, which was crazy. Like, I don't know what they were afraid of. I guess they were just afraid everybody was going to run jets, and if they only rushed 3, then Patrick maybe could rush for 30, 40 yards.
Chunk yards, yeah.
I don't know, but I don't know what, I wasn't in that defensive room, so I don't know what they were thinking. But so I call it like a mush rush. Like, you want to rush with a sense of urgency and pressure, but you want to keep the middle of the pocket secure, and you want to make sure it's kind of like kickoff coverage, right? Where in kickoff coverage, the first thing a special teams coach says in kickoff coverage: stay in your lanes. Stay in your lanes. Like, don't give anybody seams. When you give Patrick seams, it gives Kelsey and Hill and Pringle and Hardman and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, it gives them all that extra second to get open and beat you from 8 to 15 yards. So, if I'm coaching defense, I don't know how you would coach it, but I would try to coach the defensive tackles and the ends to sort of have a disciplined rush, bull rush, do a couple of stunts to try to build some pressure in there, but don't give Patrick seams on the rush. Stay disciplined and don't let him step up in the pocket and find a little area where he can get open, throw the sidearm, or get Kelsey going across the field, or how Kelsey posts up like an NBA center. That's what I would do. I think that's like the number one thing I would do on defense. I'm not like a coverage specialist, so I can't sit here and tell you how to cover Kelsey or, whether, but you do see that most teams will get into some kind of a cover 2 zone with a little bit of man mixed in there. Don't, you got to just get on those guys. You got to get on Kelsey. You got to disrupt him at the line of scrimmage. You can't let him have a free release. Like, I couldn't believe on that play how free he got out on that, on that last play to set up the Butker field goal against the Bills. Like, let him do that. Just to stop him, So it's that disciplined approach to the rush, and letting, Kelsey get off the ball would be the number one thing I would do to secure a better chance to help your defense and to make Patrick make mistakes and force him to his left. Don't let him go to his right. You see what he does when he goes to his right. Yeah. He's a different animal when he goes to the right.
Yep. Speaking with Joe Valerio, host of the Believe in Chiefs podcast, part of the BLEAV podcast network. They keep feeding us great guest after great guest, and this is definitely one of the best. We love speaking with you, Joe. I've got maybe a couple questions to end on with you. I don't know if my co-host has another one or two for you, but
I got one.
Okay. So kind of individual matchups. I mean, you talked about Kelsey, you talked about what maybe in the trenches or a couple of other individual matchups here and there do you think you'll be really watching this week and will be key to the end result of this one?
Yeah, I'm really curious to see what Chris Jones can do on the interior of the line. So, like, if I'm a fan, I know everybody, as soon as the ball hikes, everybody, they just leave, they forget about us linemen, right? They just like, I go right to the quarterback, right? What's the quarterback doing? Like, I would just, if I were a fan, watch what happens right at the snap with Chris Jones and the and what happens on the interior, whether it's left guard, right guard, center, whatever, however what scheme they're going to come up to block, and which direction I would watch what direction the Bills line goes to, whether they're going to slide the protection to Jones and Clark, whether they're going to slide the protection to Reed and Melvin Ingram. So, like, because I think that's where the matchup's going to happen. Because what happens in offensive line play, it's all slide protection these days, right? Like, so what they do is, if picture the 4 down linemen and 1 linebacker, okay, just like, and everybody else is on the perimeter, right? So you picture that in a pass set. So you're going to watch the center, and he's going to point, and the quarterback's they're going to yell a number, right? And they do this on a run play because they don't want you to know they're passing, so they will make fake calls. So don't always think just because a center points at a linebacker and the quarterback goes, number 52, like what they're telling them up front is that's the guy that you're going to block offensive line. So the center's going to put, like, so let's say they got 4 down linemen, and let's say the number 52, the linebacker, is offset to the left of the offensive line, right? So the center's going to say 52. So that's the guy that the offensive line is responsible for. They're responsible for the 4 down players, okay, the defensive tackles and the 2 ends, and that backer. So whoever the uncovered guy is going to slide towards that player. So if they're in a standard like 40 front and you got the 2 defensive tackles are lined up over the guards, okay, the center's he's going to inch his way to the left, so that if 52 comes, either the guard's going to take him and then the center will take his guy, or if he goes all the way outside, they'll slide the protection all the way, and the tackle will take him, the guard will take the end, and the center will take the down tackle, right? That's how slide protection works. So watch that. Watch who they declare as the offensive line's linebacker. So when they do that, right? So for your listeners, when they declare that the center's going to the left, say there's another linebacker or a defensive back lined up to the right, that now belongs to either the running back or the quarterback. Okay, so if the running back is in and it's not an empty set, then the running back's going to take that player, and the 2 linemen on that side are going to be one-on-one. Does that make sense? Can you picture that pictorially, right? Like, absolutely. What's happening?
Yeah.
So that's where the trouble happens. Because think about it, in slide protection, if the center's going to the left, now you've got 3 offensive lineman blocking 2 down guys. And if the backer doesn't come, oh, my watch wants to know what I was doing. It said, sorry, Can you say that again?
What's up, Scary?
So like then you have one-on-one matchups. Now, that was the longest answer to a short question.
I loved it.
You don't want Chris Jones as that singled up down tackle.
Yeah.
Okay, so picture that, right? So the center's going to the left because he's got to go help the guard and tackle with number 52, who's their guy. And now you've got a one-on-one with Chris Jones and Melvin Ingram on the right, or Chris Jones and Frank Clark on the right, or if the opposite. So what the Chiefs will try to do is they'll try to put the blitzing linebacker to the side that's away from Chris Jones, because they're going to want the one-on-one blocks to happen with Chris Jones and either Frank Clark or Ingram, and they're going to want the center to go away from Chris Jones and not be able to help. That's what Spagnuolo's the magic he's going to be trying to do. So what he's probably going to do early on is he's going to blitz a linebacker or two opposite Chris Jones, so that the slide protection out, when Joe Burrow gets the line, he's going to say, all right, guys, you got 52 offensive line. I'm going to take the hot guy over here, or the back's going to take the hot backer over here if they come, but they don't want that one-on-one with Chris Jones. And that's where I would watch early. What is going on with the protection, and how is the line sliding, and how are they helping each other, with these 4 guys who are all pretty decent pass rushers. So it's all going to be about that one-on-one matchup up front, and how the Chiefs can create more one-on-ones with Chris Jones. Because what used to happen here, I'll give you a good example. I'll give you a real example that happened to me. I had a chance to play against Reggie White in 1992 when the Eagles came into town. So one of my idols, I grew up in Philadelphia. I couldn't believe I saw those Eagles helmets out on the field. I'm like, what is happening? Am I actually doing this? I was blocking Biff McNutty from Harvard a couple years ago. What the hell is going on here? Right? I'm going against Reggie White. So the whole game, so this is what happens. This is what happens in an offensive line room. So Howard Mudd's our offensive line coach, right? And he goes, all right. He goes, John Alt, right? Who was our left tackle? I was playing right tackle. John Alt was our all-pro left tackle. He's like, John, you know who Clyde Simmons is, right? And John's like, yeah, coach, I think I know who Clyde Simmons is.
The Bengals too. Yeah.
Fantastic pass rusher, right? Mm-hmm. He goes, because guess what, John? You have him all day one-on-one. And I'll tell you why. Because we're sliding the entire protection to Valerio, right? I was a second-year player. I'm going against my idol, Reggie White, who literally threw me around like I was in high school, right? And so what was happening is we did every slide protection, no matter who was the good hot linebacker, we were sliding the protection to Reggie White. So when we would get up to the line and it was slide protection, Dave Craig, our quarterback, would be like, slide right, 92, 92. That told anybody who was uncovered, we're going to Reggie White, because Joe needs all the help he can get. And so what that did is that put the pressure on John Alt to say, well, guess what? I'm getting no help at left tackle now. None. Because generally the left guard was covered, right? And so you got to try to create those kind of mismatches, right? And then sometimes they would put Reggie White on the center, so you didn't know where to slide. So it's like that kind of stuff that happens up front is what I hope fans watch for in matchups. I know that was a really long one.
That was freaking awesome.
About some other ones, but that's just a little bit about line play and the slide protection and how it all comes together. So, I would imagine the Chiefs are going to be blitzing opposite Chris Jones to get the protection to slide away, so they can get a one-on-one with the left guard or the right guard, depending on where he's lined up.
Lessons of the Bengals offensive line have yet to learn, really, based off of that last game against Tennessee. I wish Jamar Chase and T. Higgins played offensive line, so you would be as excited to answer this next question. Unfortunately, they do not. But obviously, the Chiefs don't want to give up 266 yards to Jamar Chase again. But also, if Gabriel Davis can give up or put 200 yards and 4 touchdowns on the Chiefs, and T. Higgins is also capable of doing that, is it just about Tyrann Mathieu coming back to Chiefs secondary, or what can the Chiefs do to make sure that one of those guys does not explode like Chase did in that first meeting, and then obviously Davis did last week?
Well, I think what they need to do is they need to, obviously, not to make it all about the line play again, but they need to rush better. They need to the defensive line needs to be better at not giving Joe the full vision of the field. Like, when I went back and watched some of that, clips from that game, and it just seemed like Joe had the full vision of the field at his disposal. And you can't do that with a quarterback like that, right? Like, if you watch every game that Brady has ever, not that the guy's failed at a lot of games, but like I go back to like when my Eagles won that Super Bowl against the Patriots, and how they would just in his face. Like, you just can't operate as a quarterback. Like, even in that game, I was watching the Bucs game, and I'm watching the way that that he was being rushed, and like when he threw that pick over to the side, it was because there was somebody in his face. I don't care if you're Tom Brady, Joe Montana, Dan Marino, John Elway, like all the greats. If you got somebody in your face, you can't make the play. And I think the pressure, especially if Tyran's not out there this week, like the pressure is going to be more on the defensive line than it is going to be. They can't let Joe Burrow and those really good wide receivers play catch. And to me, that's really what it's going to come down to, more than just the matchup between Ward and Chase, or Snead and Chase, or even Tyrann Mathieu and Chase. It's going to come down to not letting those guys play pitch and catch. And I think, again, not to make it about, games are won up front. That's what happened in that game. They just were letting Joe play pitch and catch. And you can't do that. And I just, maybe they just didn't know what they were in for with Joe. I mean, you hope they would know. I mean, the guy's, had a fantastic career, even though he is young. I don't know. I would never say that Steve Spagnuolo underestimated Joe Burrow, but that was like the kind of the feeling I got in that game watching them, is that they sort of they underestimated what he could really do. And it was like, oh, it's coming into Arrowhead, it's going to be loud. And, not that the Chiefs ever think, well, we throw our helmets out there and we win games, but I think they underestimated him. And I don't think they can do that again. And if they do, it's going to come back to bite them, because if they give him an opportunity to, I know I've used this term like 3 times, but if they just let him pitch and catch, it's going to be a long day for the team. I mean, it's like the only hope in that is if the Bengals score a lot, the Chiefs can keep up with them, right? Like, it's not like the Chiefs don't have it's not like they have an offense that is, a grinded out, like, oh my God, if we're down by 2 touchdowns, it's over, because we've never been in shotgun formation before. And I've been there. Like, when I played my first 2 years with the Chiefs, I think if we had 70 plays in the game, we ran the ball 52 times, because it was Christian Okoye to the left. It was, Barry Word to the right. Those 2 guys as tailbacks were bigger than any defensive tackles I blocked in the Ivy League. So I saw Christian Okoye. I'm like, he's my tailback. He weighs 265 pounds. I never played against a defensive tackle who was 265 pounds. I was like, give me the ball and let me run behind him. But like, we knew when that team got behind, we were sunk. Yeah. Because we just didn't. I love Dave Craig, and Steve DeBerg were fantastic. They were both at the end of their career. They were not the kind of guys that were going to light it up in a 2-minute drill. And so I think that's the one thing the Chiefs have going for them against a fast-paced team like the Bengals, is that they can keep up. They're never out of a game. They're just never out of a game, and we saw that against the Bills, right? So, I think if I'm going against the Bengals this week and I'm Steve Spagnuolo, I think you pressure Joe Burrow until he beats you twice. I wouldn't be so scared if I'm Steve Spagnuolo and I go after Joe in the first quarter and I just blitz, like put the pressure on him, try to rattle that offensive line. That's what I would do if I were Spags. I'd just be like, stunt, blitz, like loud crowd noise, get them in 3rd and long, because, and if Joe throws a touchdown and beats the defense the way that Allen did a couple of times, fine, but keep doing it. Because like the Chiefs can keep up, their offense can keep up. So like that's what I would do. I would bait fish a little bit if I'm Spags, Coach Spagnuolo. I'd be like, let me see if I can rattle this kid, and just keep the pressure on him. And if he beats us, all right, he beat us. But Patrick will score. He'll come back. He'll get that. He'll get it back. Keep going and see how it goes. And if that doesn't work, then the Chiefs might be in for a long day, you know. But that's like, that's the kind of stuff that's the chess match that happens out there.
Talking with Joe Valerio, host of the Believe in Chiefs podcast, part of the Believe podcast network. This has been incredible, and I knew I'd get smarter talking to an Ivy League guy tonight. So,
oh my God,
this has been awesome. Before we get your score prediction, I'm kind of a history guy. I'm an NFL history guy, and obviously, you kind of talked a little bit about you didn't use the term, but you said running the ball a lot during your days with the Chiefs. That's known as Marty ball.
Oh yeah.
Marty obviously coached the Browns in the old AFC Central. He was your coach in the Kansas City Chiefs, and he recently passed away. In my mind, a really, really good football coach, a really good man, and a guy who was hyper intelligent. I don't know if I don't really know what kind of question I'm asking you, but if you have some thoughts on Marty Schottenheimer, who was a big figure in the NFL and obviously, a really good coach for a really long time, we'd love to hear it.
Oh God, I kind of well up when I think about Coach, and he was like a father figure, to all of us. He had that perfect sense as a coach of knowing how much he cared about you, but yet he knew that he was never going to be your buddy. He was never going to be that pal around guy. Like, he was a father figure. Like, that's the best way I could put it, I guess, is and I love that. And we needed that. Like, we relished the fact that he was like that. He knew he cared about us so much, and his emotion, he was willing to put his emotions out on his sleeve and cry when he needed to cry, and not being so macho that, he couldn't cry in front of his players when he had an emotional thing happen in his life, whether it was a game or a personal issue or whatever. You just knew he cared. And like, that was really cool to be coached by somebody like that, who was so smart. My biggest thing about Marty, like, that I feel for him is that, like, I hate that he, will be kind of known sometimes as like the guy who didn't win the big one. I think it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous because, there's, well, back then it was, wasn't all, whether 32 teams or 28 teams or whatever, like there's only one team that goes to the Super Bowl every year. And there's only been, 50 plus Super Bowls, like, and there's been multiple winners. Like, there's only been so many teams that have done it. Like, but the fact that year in and year out, he put a product out there you could be proud of, where players were going to do the right thing in the community and win games, and put a team out there you could root for and go to the playoffs and bring excitement. And like, he was the foundation of this. To me, he's literally, there were some great coaches, back to the Hank Stram days, and Marv Levy even had a stint in Kansas City. But to me, he's the shoulder of the giant that we're standing on, and that Andy Reid is standing on, because he built this. And Dick Vermeil took it to a new level, and brought in some really fantastic offensive schemes and things like that. But I think Marty built this organization, and like we're like, this whole organization is standing on his shoulders right now, and I think that's really cool. My favorite Marty story was, we said Marty time was Lombardi time. I mean, I remember my rookie year, like, we went 13 days in a row for the first 13 days of training camp, full pad 2-a-days, right? We're just beating the snot out of each other, right? And like, after the 6th day, Coach Schottenheimer, he happened to be Catholic, and I happened to be Catholic, and some of the veterans were like, "Hey, Rook, I know you're Catholic. Marty's Catholic, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, I heard the coach was Catholic." Like, they're like, "Go ask him if we're going to get off tomorrow so we can all go to mass." So I go up to Coach Schottenheimer on Saturday night, and I was like, "Coach, just wondering tomorrow, like, I know my grandmother would be really happy if, good Catholic, Italian Catholic kid would, be able to get to mass tomorrow." Right. And he's like, "Joe," he goes, "I love that you're asking me this. It's fantastic." He goes, you make Grandma Valerio proud." He said, "But I've got it taken care of. Don't worry." And he goes, I've got a priest coming in at lunchtime. He's going to do a mass at lunch. So he had this priest come in from the local church in River Falls, Wisconsin, and the priest said like a 10-minute express mass and got us back, to lunch, and then so that we could have our second 2 a day
There you go.
on Sunday. I was like, oh man. So like that experiment failed. But like Marty and Coach Schottenheimer we used to laugh about that all the time. He'd be like, remember that time you came up and asked me? But like he just was like, he was really special. And I'm glad you asked me that. I'm glad. Thank you for keeping that sort of like Ohio memory alive of Coach, even though he wasn't with the Bengals. But I know that that whole closeness of the old AFC Central, and like thanks for asking that, because he was really special, and we loved him. We loved him, and he was a fantastic human being, and his family, and Brian, his son, has had a fantastic career as a coach. Guys, another one, Nate Hackett, just getting that job. I watched Nate Hackett play high school ball. He was Paul Hackett, our offensive coordinator's son. And God, I remember Nate was like our ball boy out there. I'm like, I turned to my wife when I saw that news. I'm like, that's Nate. Like, how old am I getting that? I'm like,
Little Nate.
I remember when like the ball boy is now like an NFL like head coach. I'm like, dude, I gotta get my hair. I gotta put some shoe polish in my hair and dye this gray wig, because I feel really old right now. But yeah. So anyway, I know that was a long one, but.
No,
Thanks for asking about Coach.
No, he had his place in the AFC Central, and obviously most people remember him for his time with the Chiefs, and had a successful run with the Chargers after that too. Like I said, a hyper intelligent guy and well respected. I know, there's kind of that big game stigma, but I mean, he got teams to big games very often. So really well respected coach. John, I was going to ask Joe for his prediction. Do you have any other questions for him before we bounce on out of here? Wait, we said, Joe, hey, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Here we are an hour later, and we're whatever. But Joe,
this is
John,
great, guys.
This has been awesome. John, if you got one more before we hop out of here, but go for it.
Yeah, I got no other questions. I just wanted to comment in, like, you can't beat those 10-minute masses though. Like they're elite.
Right, I know. For that part of it was fine, but the fact that I had to go get a nap and then go out for that would have been my 7th day of 2-a-days in a row. I was hoping and then we went another 6. We went 13 days. I used to hug my toothbrush at night and cry. I would just hug it and be like, I just want to go home. I just want to go home. Right?
Yeah,
like
God could give you then,
Yeah, it was crazy, but oh my God, the stories I could tell about those training camps. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. But yeah, those 10-minute masses are pretty good. The prediction, Anthony. Whew. I mean, look, I know we're on a. I don't want to come off as a cheap.
No, you gotta go with what you feel.
We're gonna the Bengals team, by the way. This is bulletin board material.
Yeah.
I look, I'm not that much of a homer. Like I love my Chiefs. I played for them. I cover them. Like I've got a ton of Chiefs fans and all that stuff. And like the first Bills game, I predicted they would lose that game. So I'm not that much of a homer that I go, geez, you're going to win every game. I try to be really objective. I really do. I think what's going to help the Chiefs in this game, and why I think Vegas is looking at it sort of the same way that I am, is that the Chiefs staff is as close as I could say comes to like artificial intelligence, that they just learn from every experience, and they just keep getting better, and they're going to learn from that loss to the Bengals. And I just think if Patrick can look, it's going to be a puncher's game, because my dad was a professional boxer, so like he used to talk about that all the time. Like, this is a puncher's fight. Like, you might be fighting the heavyweight champ of the world, but all it takes is one roundhouse to knock him out. That can happen, right? That's why it's the NFL, and that's why last week, 4 games came down to walk-offs, right? Like, who knows, right? So I don't want to say like there's no hope in this game, but I think when you look at it on paper, I think the Chiefs win the game by a touchdown, I don't think it's going to be double digits. Like, I think so that's why I say it could be a puncher's fight. That one roundhouse, one pick six, one big fumble, one special teams guffaw, somewhere along the line, it changes the whole dynamic of the game. So, but I do think that the Chiefs are going to win. I think it's going to be a mildly high-scoring game. I think the Chiefs win 31-24.
Okay.
And I think Burrow keeps him in it. He's tough. He's not gonna get rattled. I just think that the Chiefs are gonna just outpace the Bengals a little bit more and learn from the loss that they had, as long as they take care of the ball. Anything can happen with turnovers, though, and that's just how I feel about the game. But
Yeah.
but not where I would walk in here and say, never would I walk in and say, oh, if either fan thinks that their team's going to walk away in this thing with a lock, even the Chiefs fans are crazy. As good as the Chiefs are playing right now, it's not a lock, and that's why I say it's kind of like it's like a touchdown game now, because I think that that's just kind of where I'll leave it at that.
No, that's fair enough, and that's where the Vegas line is set currently, and the good news is that regardless of the result, it seems as if this is going to probably be a somewhat regular, if not a really regular matchup in the postseason going forward in the very near future, based on where these teams are headed. So there's good news based on regardless of the result for either team.
Yeah.
Joe,
the AFC West is the AFC West. I'm getting the AFC West centric. The AFC is fantastic.
Yeah, it is.
I think it's I just think it's fantastic. I really do. Up and down the divisions, you just look at the teams and the parity, and the kind of games that have been played. I just think it's a really, really fun conference to be in right now. I think it's the conference where it's at myself. I mean, I know there's some good teams on the other side too, but I just think the AFC is just stocked with great young quarterbacks, athletic players, athletic teams, great coaches. It's just great rivalries within each division. And now we're getting these intra-division rivalries like the Bills and the Chiefs and the Bengals and the Chiefs. And it's just, I just think it's where it's at. But anyway, I could talk all day. I keep going.
It's good.
This has been, you have to shut me off. Get the hook.
No, that's all right. This has been awesome.
Start playing the Academy Award music. The walk-off music. Well, I do that in work meetings. I have a little video on my computer that when people start talking too much, I start playing that over. Like when people in our business meetings start talking too long, I start hitting it.
Yeah, there you go. And blast it louder and louder.
Yeah, exactly.
Joe, this has been incredible. Thanks so much for your time. Just for our listeners, we've got a lot of live listeners across that are tuning in right now across a lot of different platforms. Where can they find your show, get some more Chiefs info, and tune in most definitely at least this week and next week based on the result going forward?
No, and first of all, guys, this was awesome. It's fun. I love chatting with you guys. You guys get it. You can find me on at Joe Valerio 73 and Twitter. I'm on LinkedIn. I do have a YouTube channel. I just launched it, picking up some subscribers. It's got most of it, centered around some of my stuff with the Chiefs. But my favorite part of it is I have this little thing I started called Cup of Joe, and it's like a Monday motivation video.
Cool.
Whether you're in community service, whether you're in education, business, industry, sports, whatever, I try to throw some football fun analogy and stories in there to, on teamwork, leadership, all that, being the best that you can be. So I have this little Monday motivation Cup of Joe thing going on YouTube. So it's if you Google like Joe Valerio lessons from the gridiron, you'll kind of find it at least on YouTube. And I'm kicking that off and having a lot of fun with that. I post all of our little podcast clips there. Got some cool, old Chief stuff. I was a broadcaster for 2 years. I got some broadcasting clips on there. I was actually a sports anchor in Kansas City.
Nice.
So yeah, so if people want to, you don't have to be. It's not really. Some of it's Chiefs focused because I played for the Chiefs, but this Monday motivation thing is going to be for everybody. And I hope maybe if your listeners want to tune in and get a little motivation here and there, there's some great stories I'll be sharing with folks that they hopefully help them through their day and be a little better. So that's kind of where it's at.
Well, I know I'll check it out. So that's awesome. Joe, this has been awesome. Thanks so much for your great amount of time, your great analysis. And quite honestly, I think this is going to be a really fun game, regardless of the result to watch
definitely.
For both.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think we've got a good one ahead. So
promise me we'll do it again. All right.
Yeah,
promise me.
Absolutely.
You guys have all my contact info now. You got it. Cell phone, whatever.
The next AFC championship,
Yeah,
that sounds
next
good.
year.
That
Yeah.
sounds good. And if, and if the Bengals are heading to the Super Bowl, then I'll come on and tell you what I think of that. How they're going to beat the Rams, who I think are going to win that game. By the way.
Okay.
But,
All right. Okay.
So
all right.
I think the luck is going to run out for the Niners myself, but I think they're going to hit a juggernaut here. I mean, it's an all-star. That Rams team is an all-star team, man. They just
They're pretty good.
They put it together. So as much as I love the guys with the vowels at their name, end of their name. I think luck has run out for Garoppolo and the boys. So we'll see how that turns out. But yeah, this has been a blast, guys. Anytime, love to jump in.
Awesome. Well, appreciate it. Go check out all the things that Joe was just talking about. Follow him on Twitter at Joe Valerio 73. He is one of the hosts of the Believe in Chiefs podcast, part of the BLEAV podcast network. Joe, thank you very much. And John, thank you as well. We will see everybody very soon, and we'll be talking about the result on Sunday. Take it easy, everybody.
Enjoy, guys.
Thanks,
Take care.
Joe.
You got it.